All right. Well, it's been a couple days since Saturday in the Gennady Golovkin-Canelo Alvarez rematch, and people are still talking about it. The fight's still fresh in our minds because there's been a lot of articles written about it. A lot of people, a lot of fighters, a lot of managers, a lot of promoters, a lot of boxing people in general are giving their take on this fight. And it seems as though, like I said before, the majority of the media members who actually sat down and scored the fight round by round and had scorecards to support their argument, they scored this fight for Golovkin, or they either had it for him or a draw. And I think two people had it for Alvarez. But I mentioned that a lot of fighters and trainers and stuff like that, it was pretty much 50-50 with a lot of those boxing trainers and the fighters themselves um, having Canelo winning the fight, but they really didn't turn in a scorecard. They just basically said, you know, Errol Spence and David Hay and Jaime Munguia and Andre Ward, guys like that, just fight people who were just randomly asked who'd you have winning, but it wasn't like they actually scored the fight. They just said I had Canelo winning. And it seems like the big common theme that's going around is, and even Roy Jones did the same thing. He didn't really score the fight, but he added a draw. But he's basing the whole thing on, well, Gennady Golovkin asked him to fight that Mexican style, and he fought that style, and he had success doing it. So he basically beat Triple G with his own game. But Paulie Malignaggi made a great point. I was watching an interview that he did this morning. Shout out to FightHype.com. It was on Fight Hype. I saw it this morning. I probably did it a day or two ago. I don't know. But he said this is a boxing match. It's not a Mexican style match. And a lot of this you can blame on Triple G and Abel Sanchez, because these both of these guys kept saying, Mexican style, Mexican style, Mexican style, saying that Triple G fights in a Mexican style type manner, which I don't agree with. I mean, Julio Cesar Chavez is the guy that coined that phrase, that term, Mexican style, and he's the guy that pretty much fights, if you want to call it Mexican style. But is there really a Mexican style? I mean, look at guys like Marco Antonio Barrera, Juan Manuel Marquez, even Canelo Alvarez himself. These guys just don't go in there and grind it out in the phone booth war, go punch for punch with you. These guys can actually box. There's more to boxing than just sitting there coining a phrase Mexican style. And because a lot of Mexican fighters sometimes go to war in there and they get in heated exchanges and they fight in the phone booth up close to the side. But if you look at Julio Cesar Chavez, he didn't get hit a lot. He moved his head a lot. He knew how to position his body on the inside. He knew how to defend on the inside, not just go punch for punch with you. Gennady Golovkin fights nothing like Julio Cesar Chavez, and trying to indicate that or imply that is just totally false. So you have to blame Gennady Golovkin and Abel Sanchez for creating this term Mexican style and trying to coin that phrase and trying to say that this is how we fight. So just because Canelo Alvarez fought Gennady Golovkin's fight and had some great success with it, I thought in the early stages of this fight, but that doesn't mean that he was dominating the fight, because just because he fought Gennady Golovkin's fight and he had success for it, you don't give him extra points for that. I mean, there is what you call ring generalship, and definitely in a great portion of this fight, or at least in the first half of this fight, you could argue that he was the ring general. But Paulie Malignaggi made a great point. I mean, Triple G, his back was never up against the ropes in this fight, and when he was moving backward, he was actually circling. So he was boxing. He was stepping back, but he was circling. He wasn't just going straight back in retreat. He was, positioning himself to get out of harm's way, and he was throwing jabs at the same time, and he was touching Canelo, and he was snapping his head back with these jabs, even though Canelo was coming forward throwing the power shots in the first half of the fight. But if you go to the second half of the fight, you look at rounds 9, 10, and 11, and even 12, Gennady Golovkin seemed to be landing the power shots, and he seemed to have his way in the latter stage of this fight with Canelo Alvarez. So, Roy Jones is saying, well, they asked him to fight a certain way. He fought that way. He did well doing so, and he scored the fight a draw. But based off of that, Roy Jones is saying, well, you know what? He should win the fight because he fought Triple G's fight and he had success doing it. So again, you have to score these rounds individually and add up the rounds at the end of the fight and just come up with a scorecard. You just can't make generalized statements and say, well, he fought in the Mexican style like Triple G asked him to, and he did well in doing so. So based off of that, we're going to give him the fight. I mean, that's bullshit. That's bullshit, and that seems to be the narrative that's being put out there by a lot of these fighters who really didn't score the fight, but they just say, "Oh, I Canelo won the fight because he beat Triple G at his own game." He didn't really beat him at his own game. He had success at it early on, but as the fight wore on, you could see that Triple G, like I said, won those later rounds. And arguably, he won the 12th. I gave it to Canelo, but that round could have gone either way. But Triple G really never retreated. He wasn't really forced back to the ropes. What he did was he circled and boxed on the perimeter instead of stepping to Golovkin. But in the second half of the fight, he started stepping to Canelo. He started two-stepping to Canelo, and he was landing a good amount of power shots too. So again, this is not a rant video or a bitch video about who won and who lost. I know Paulie Malignaggi's calling it a robbery. That's fine. He said it could have either been a draw or Golovkin won. There's no way that Canelo won 7 rounds. I mean, that's his opinion. I'm not going to, confirm or deny that or support that. But he did make a great point. Ask yourselves, guys, did either fighter have their back on the ropes in this fight at all? This fight was pretty much fought in the center of the ring. And, if we want to say guys like Floyd Mayweather, who sometimes step back and they circle and they pivot out, if you want to say that they're boxing, then if Triple G is doing something similar, obviously not to the same degree, but doing something similar, then we got to give him credit for it too. Like Triple G did do some good boxing in this fight. So just because they labeled him as this aggressive killer, this boogeyman or whatever, doesn't mean the guy doesn't have boxing skills, number one, and it doesn't mean that he has to fight that way 100% of the time against everyone. You have to be versatile. People said, oh, Triple G can't fight going backwards. I think he did okay fighting backwards. I think he was still landing. He was stepping back and he was circling, and he was still landing jabs off the back foot. It wasn't like he wasn't landing punches off the back foot. And meanwhile, Canelo was missing shots coming forward a lot too. So just because he had, and then Paulie Malignaggi also said this, just because a guy has a good moment, a couple spurts here and there in the fight or in the round, do you just give him the round based off of that, even though he's getting jabbed the whole round, he's getting touched the whole round, and then all of a sudden he has an explosive moment here and there in little pieces, in sections of the round, but not a sustained amount of the round, a sustained part of the round. So that's the thing. So guys like Errol Spence, Andre Ward, Clarissa Shields, I think said the same thing. Oh, he fought the fight. Roy Jones, he fought the fight that they asked him to fight, and he didn't get knocked out. He almost got. He was hurt in the 10th and the 11th rounds. Give him credit for holding on, but he was significantly hurt in those 2 rounds. And I thought there was a moment in that 10th round I thought he was going to get stopped. I really did. So you can say what you want. Triple G's face was more messed up than Canelo's. I hear that. But at the end of the day, you don't score facial damage. I mean, some guys, they bruise easier than others. Some guys, they bloody up easier than others. You can get hit right in the point of the chin and stagger back badly and wobble and even get knocked down. But if you get hit in the chin, that's not going to necessarily cause a cut. It's just facial damage is based off of a number of things. if a fighter is soft-skinned, has delicate skin, number one, or if he has scar tissue from other fights in those areas where he's getting hit, number two. And if you're getting hit in the bony parts of your face, your eyes, your cheeks, your nose, where there's not much flesh there, there's not much fatty tissue, then you're going to show damage there. But if someone gets hit on the temple, someone gets hit on the chin, and they're getting staggered, they're getting buckled, and they're looking hurt too, obviously those areas are not going to cause cuts and blood and stuff like that. So if you notice when Triple G staggered Canelo, he hit him right in the chin. He hit him in the chin, and that was what kind of buckled him and knocked him back. And he cut Canelo's eye too. But Triple G just so happened to get hit in the bony parts of his face where there's not much fat and not much tissue there. So that's why, that was that you saw the difference in facial damage. And that's a great point, MBT Boxing. Jacob's face against GGG and Ward and Kovalev, those guys looked a little bit swelled. And, you could argue that Jacobs won the Golovkin fight. I thought he did. But if you notice, Jacobs was swelled around his cheeks and a little bit around his eyes, because that's the area where you get hit, where swelling and cuts and stuff occur. You're getting, like I said, to reiterate this, you're getting hit on the, the forehead, you're getting hit in the temple, you're getting hit in the jaw. You're not going to show facial damages from getting hit in those areas. So that's a big thing. That's a big thing, So this whole facial damage thing, it's not Mortal Kombat, it's not a video game, that's bullshit. So let's get back to using the 10-point must system. Enough with these unwritten rules. Oh, well, he fought your fight and you didn't knock him out even though he came to you and fought your fight. So he did well fighting your fight in the first half. So based off that, we're going to look at the whole fight as one big giant round instead of breaking it up into individual rounds and actually scoring each round and adding up the who wins more rounds than the other guy. That's not how we do it. And again, I hate to sound redundant. I keep making these videos and saying the same thing over and over again, but you guys just don't seem to get it because a lot of people just keep coming up with these ridiculous statements about why guys are winning fights, and they have nothing to do with the four areas of how a boxing match is scored, with the ring generalship, the clean, effective punching, effective aggressiveness, and defense. And once again, Paulie Malignaggi said you don't give a guy a round because he's doing one of those things well, and the other guy is doing maybe two or three of those things well. You can't look at just one factor. Like, you can't just say this guy's landing more punches, but the other guy's landing less punches, but he's doing more damage. He's knocking the guy back. He's staggering him. He's buckling him. And the other guy's landing more punches, but maybe his punches don't have the same effect. That's why this is so subjective, and you have to look at it that way. You just can't mention one thing and say, well, he did this, that's why he won. No, because it's much more complicated than that. There's a lot of factors that have to be taken into account when you're scoring a boxing match. All right, so I just saw that video this morning with Paulie Malignaggi, and I thought he made some great points in it. And he's right. It's not a Mexican style match. It's a boxing match. And just because the guy who's supposed to be the bigger puncher, the more aggressive guy, the guy who steps to guys, just because he decides to box for the first half of the fight, that doesn't mean that he's losing the fight because he's not fighting the way you want him to fight, or the way he said the way he normally fights. Guys change things up. Like Marvin Hagler, when he fought Sugar Ray Leonard, he was the guy he's the stalker, he's the swarmer. But he actually started that fight out boxing against Ray Leonard. Why? Because Ray Leonard kept saying at these press conferences, Marvin Hagler doesn't get enough credit for his boxing ability. He kind of gassed him up. And then he even had Marvin Hagler saying it at in one of the press conferences, don't be surprised. I might go out there and just outbox Ray. So there's no rule that just because a guy has a reputation of being, a certain fighter, he shouldn't be penalized if he doesn't fight the way his reputation dictates that he fights. You don't penalize a guy for that. I mean, Triple G was having success boxing in this fight. there were rounds where you could say that Triple G outboxed Canelo. And even though Canelo was moving forward, there were rounds where he was being the aggressor, but he wasn't landing all of his shots. And all the while, when he was attacking, he was running into jabs while he was missing. And if you want to totally discount that, then that's your decision to do so. But you don't score a fight based off of one of those areas of criteria that I mentioned. All right, guys, that's all I got to say. Until next time, Beaver's out. Talk to y'all soon. And I'm sure this debate's going to go on. I believe they're going to be showing a rebroadcast of this fight on Saturday. A lot of people are going to probably rescore it. And I'm curious to see if your scorecards are similar to how you originally saw it on fight night. Because I scored it twice, and I'm going to be honest with you, I flipped some rounds around, but I still had Triple G winning this fight. I still had Triple G winning this fight. But again, I'm not going to argue if you had Canelo winning, but I still had Triple G winning this fight after watching it twice. So my mind was not changed after watching it twice. Maybe yours will be. I don't know. But once again, Beaver's out. Till next time, talk to y'all soon. And have a great day, guys. Peace out.